Hello, welcome once again to Leto's Law. I'm Steve Leto. You might notice a shirt sent to me by some good friends of this show, actually people I just met. Hey Steve, hello from the beautiful shores of Lake Michigan and the Shelby Hart area of our beautiful state. Great channel, always informative and entertaining. I know you're a t-shirt kind of guy, as I am also. Living in tees most days, I have a closet for nothing but my tees, and I actually do now too. So I thought I'd get a couple and send them along to you. Keep up the fine topics you present to us each day, and please overlook the less informed, which always complain the loudest. We're in good health. And that's passed along to me by a couple new friends over on the west coast of Michigan, someplace over here. And so I thank them for that. Today I'm going to talk about, I mentioned a couple videos ago about a homeowners association and the situation going on with a guy whose vehicle is parked in his driveway, and the HOA said it violated the rules, and the rules said you can't have a vehicle with damage, but his vehicle doesn't have any physical damage other than perhaps the finish, the patina. And I mentioned that at one point in time I was on a condo board, and I said I did it for a little while and hated it. Condo boards are a lot like HOAs. There's actually some association bylaws when you join when you buy a condo. And a condo association that I sat on the board for was a very, very large condo complex. I think there's over 150 units, something like that. And so it involved a lot of money in terms of how much money we took in and what we spent it on. And the buildings had been built, I believe in the 1930s or 40s, and had been converted into condos from basically low-budget apartments. But because the area had become trendy, suddenly these things skyrocketed in value. And so we actually had to oversee some projects to redo all the roofs of all the units. And it was literally, $500,000, that kind of thing. But here's the thing, is that I was an owner in the condos, and most of the people in there are owners. And I got to know my neighbors. You kind of have to, because of the fact that, like I said before, that owning a condo is kind of like the worst of both worlds, because it's like apartment living. You got people on the other side of the wall, and you're paying monthly fees to the association, but you're also buying the place like it's real estate. So, I learned a lesson on that one. But when I first moved in there, I got to know my neighbors, and I got along with them pretty well. And along the way, I heard some complaints about stuff happening because the condo association had been acting kind of weird and nitpicky. And so I got to know one of the guys on the condo board. I said, Steve, here's the problem. He goes, I'm outvoted. And I forgot if the condo board was 7 people or 9 people, but it was an odd number, of course. And he said, we right now are 1 vote shy of being more normal. So he goes, why don't you run for the condo board and see if you can win, get on the board. So I ran and I won, and I got to be on the condo board. So once a month we'd go sit someplace and sit around and talk about business and look at the budget and look at the everything. And somewhere along the line, I became aware of the kinds of things that you have to deal with on a condo board. And what's weird is most of the stuff is just mundane business, paying these bills. And, oh, by the way, this one unit had something happen, but it was a common element, so we have to pay for it. Or this other unit had something happen, and it wasn't a common element. We had to break the news. No, we don't take care of that. And if you don't know much about condos, imagine an apartment complex. This is the easiest way to explain it. Imagine an apartment complex, but instead you buy your apartment. But because these things are all attached to each other, you actually buy your apartment, but the condo association takes care of the outsides of the buildings, at least they did when I was in, so that like the door, for instance, is owned by the condo association, meaning that if the door goes bad, I can ask the condo association to replace it. Okay? And stuff inside the unit's mine, but the structure is actually, the roof is also a common element that the condo association's got to take care of. And then, of course, all the common elements, that is the yards in front of the buildings, the yards behind the buildings, the parking lots, okay? And so pretty much it's pretty straightforward. Most people, once they get that thing in their head, they can understand the concept. And so I'm on the board, and I can tell you 2 stories that illustrate the problems of being on a condo board, or an HOA, I guess. And that is that the rules said specifically you're only allowed to have 1 dog. You could have 1 dog, 1 cat. And at one point in time, they actually had a rule about how much the dog could weigh. But we kind of turned a blind eye towards that because there had been some rulings in the state of Michigan by courts that said that really, if a dog is 36 pounds and the rule says 35. Do you really have the right to tell these people, lose the dog or we're going to fine you? And what if the dog loses a pound and drops to 35? And now it's okay? So we're going to come weigh your dog? It's random to just pick a number, right? So they just said, okay, fine, you can have one dog, you can have one cat. Leave it at that, right? Well, I had a neighbor that had 2 dogs. And now here's the thing. I didn't care. And she was on the end unit. So what happened was, I never complained about her, so nothing ever happened about it. And so then I'm on the condo association board, and we got a complaint that there's a guy who had 2 dogs, and they were big dogs. I believe they were St. Bernards. He had 2 St. Bernards. And somebody complained, and they said, look, this guy's got these 2 huge dogs. It's a problem. It's one thing if, you got a little dog or you take your dog out for walks. This guy was literally letting his 2 big St. Bernards run loose in this big open space. The way the condos went, they would go like this and then like this, and there'd be like a courtyard, one in front, one in back like that. And he's letting his 2 dogs run loose in this courtyard, and several people complained and said, look, this guy's out of control. Dogs are out of control. I can't go out there because a dog the size of a horse will run me over. And don't get me wrong, I love dogs. And so we sent the guy a letter saying, look, you got 2 dogs. You're not allowed to have 2 dogs. And the guy said, well, the problem I have is that one of the dogs is a female and she's pregnant. So I guess he's kind of suggesting that we shouldn't break up the family or the marriage of the dogs. And we said, well, but there's a problem. When you moved into the condos, you knew there's rules says you can't have 2 dogs, right? And he said, well, I don't know what to tell you because I'm not doing anything about it. I have the 2 dogs, and one's going to give birth one of these days, and who knows how that works. And so we started sending the process of sending the threatening letters and hate mail and all that stuff. And weirdest thing, the dog gave birth and had 8 puppies, 8 St. Bernard puppies. So the people who'd been complaining, saying my next door neighbor has 2 dogs, started complaining, going, my next door neighbor has 10 dogs. 10 St. Bernards. In a condominium that is a townhouse that had a footprint, I believe, of 700 square feet. So it'd be 700 on the ground floor, 700 above, 1 bathroom, 2 bedrooms, and a tiny kitchen. You had to step outside to change your mind, as they say. And that man had 10 dogs in there. And I grant you that the puppy St. Bernards aren't as big as the parent St. Bernards. But you can imagine that the sheer quantity and volume of St. Bernardage in that apartment, in the condo, was quite large. And we went through the whole process of having to send the guy all kinds of mail, telling him legal threats. And I don't even remember how it ended. But I know it ended ugly. And I'm pretty sure that the guy was a renter, which is another problem because he didn't care that much. And the problem was that the landlord who owned the condo couldn't sell it at the time for some reason. So it simply rented it out and didn't know the guy had 2 dogs that would soon become 10 dogs. And so I'm pretty sure we wound up having to work it out with the owner of the unit, but that was after the tenant moved out. So these things happen, but it's ugly. And it's just, if you don't get along with your neighbors, it gets ugly real fast. But the weirdest problem I'll tell you about, and this is the stuff I learned about from being on the condo association board, is that we were responsible for the plumbing of everything that left the condos. So plumbing inside your house, like if your faucet burst, that was you. But if your plumbing was problematic, once the plumbing left, in essence, the imaginary line of where your wall of your condo is, once that plumbing is outside, that was a common element. And so there were units of 4. It would be 4, 4, and then 4, and 4, like that, all the way down the road. And we started getting complaints from one group of these 4. There's always people in this one group of 4 who would say, our plumbing's not working. Our plumbing's screwing up. Our plumbing's screwing up. And there were 3 older couples and 1 young couple. And when the first report was made, we had to send in a plumber, or whoever it is that works. I guess is it a plumber who works outside in plumbing? I guess so. But we called somebody who deals with sewers, and they did what they did, and they came back and they go, yeah, we figured it out. Somebody had flushed a diaper who was flushing diapers down their toilet. Now, the weird thing is, I will admit to you, I do not have children. I will also admit to you something that will probably seem strange until you realize I've never had children, and I'm the youngest of a group of siblings. I've never changed a diaper in my life. Just haven't done it. But my thought process always was, and I think I've seen it done, is that you take the diaper and any other accessories that it might have in it at the time, and you would somehow take that and dispose of it. But I wouldn't think you'd try to flush it down a toilet. Call me crazy. That never occurred to me. So the first time that happened, and we got the report back from the plumber and said, here's what it's going to cost you because we had to make this call. And just to let you know, I forgot if it was a single diaper or a bunch of diapers. But it was the guy said, the culprit is simply somebody's flushing diapers down their toilet. So now the condo board's got a bunch of people on it. We live in the community and we know who all these different people are. And somebody says, gee, there's 4 units, old couple, single old guy, and young couple who just had a baby. Now, I'm not Sherlock Holmes. And I don't think, however, that it requires that level of thought process to figure out who it probably is. Now, I believe we actually did check to make sure it was a child's diaper and not possibly... No, it's a child's diaper. And again, you might think you actually ask a plumber or a sewer guy that, and I have a sneaky feeling that guy's got to discuss all kinds of gross stuff with customers. And we confirmed that, yes, in fact, these are children's diapers that are causing the trouble. And so we thought, how do we handle this delicately? So we would routinely send letters out to everyone in the community. And, it costs a couple bucks to print something up, 128 copies or whatever it is, and then mail them out. But we'd mail out a thing. So we actually said, something, let's send out a reminder to let people know that, by the way, just so you know, toilets are for flushing certain things and other things shouldn't be flushed. And the only reason we're saying this is because recently we've had a couple service calls, and we tried to make it sound like we weren't pointing at any one person. But we said, we've recently had a service call, and somebody told us that the problem was caused by diapers, and so these should not be flushed down the toilets. And 2 days later, again, it happened. And called the same guy out. Same guy goes down there, sends us back the exact same report, and goes, guys, it's diapers. Diapers. We have to pay his bill. And now we discuss it. And the question now becomes, wait a second. We know who's doing it. And it's if you go and read the bylaws, someplace in there was a thing that says if you basically do something stupid that costs us money, and we know it's you, you're breaking the rules. And the obvious thing is stop. Just stop doing it. Stop. And the weird thing is that the 4 units that shared whatever, I apologize, I know there's plumbers in the audience who want to tell me what these words are, but each house, I assume, has a pipe coming out of it, and somewhere those pipes join together and then go out. And the clog was happening someplace downstream to where all 4 units were having their plumbing affected. All 4. So the person doing it was ruining and screwing up their own ability to use their toilet. And by the way, I told you a minute ago, it's a 1-bathroom, small condominium. So, so you've only got 1 toilet and you can't use it temporarily. So the weird thing is, we finally said, okay, screw it. So we sent a letter to those 4 people, pretending again, we're not going to single out the couple with the baby that we know is doing it, but we're going to pretend because, and I think we may have even spoken to the other 3 and just said, hey, just to let you know, you can ignore the letter. Unless, of course, you're doing this despite us for some weird reason, but we think we know who's doing it. And it kept happening. And we actually think that the people, when they got the letter, that said, by the way, would you please not flush diapers down the toilet? It's costing us money to get these sewers cleaned out. That they actually said, oh, they're singling us out. Despite the fact that 127 other people who weren't so stupid as to be flushing diapers down the toilet had gotten a letter too. And they look at it and go, what? Huh? If I'd gotten that letter out of context, I'd be going, who flushes diapers down a toilet? What? Like, I would be worried that, because remember, if you clog the toilet in the condo and it doesn't make it past the wall, that's your problem. I'd be worried about having to do that. Okay? So, all I can tell you is that we wound up getting into this, I can't use that word on video, can I? It's a match. Starts with the letter P. In fact, that's the verb too. But yeah, so we got into this little thing of bickering back and forth where we basically finally wound up sending direct letters to this one couple saying, would you please stop doing that? Next time it happens, we're going to actually fine you. And shortly thereafter they moved out, turns out they were also renters. So in other words, the letters weren't going directly to the couple. They were going to the landlord. And then the landlord would contact the couple. And so I don't know what was happening between the landlord and the couple. But we had a great relationship with the landlord. The landlord would actually say, hey, look, you know something? I like to rent these places out. These people are nice. They've got jobs. They pay their rent on time. And then we'd say, yeah, but they're costing us money. They're costing us money. And it's a bad situation. And eventually they did move out. But we had other problems with owners. You know, actual people who owned the unit and would actually almost like challenge us to do something. And I mentioned, for instance, that the outsides of these units were owned by the association. So we took care of the painting of the outside. We painted the doors. We would actually fix the windows because that's on the outside. And we'd have people move in and immediately repaint their door, which they're not allowed to do. So you're driving down and all the colors are very, very nicely coordinated. And all of a sudden you see one purple door. And you're looking at it going, is this really worth the fight? You know, so I actually quit. I got off the board, but the reason I quit the board has nothing to do with any of this. My next door neighbors were alcoholics. And if they're watching, just to let you know, you guys are alcoholics. And they started getting mad because they'd hear these stories about, hey, I heard you sent a nasty letter to that young couple down the street for flushing diapers. And I'm like, number one, I didn't send it, but the group did send it, and you know it cost us money, right? And the more they drank, the angrier they would get, and I couldn't get inside because they actually had set up a patio outside with a table and chairs where they'd sit and start getting trashed at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So every single evening I'd have to run this gauntlet past these drunken neighbors of mine. And at one point in time, I actually hauled some garbage out to the dumpster, came back inside, turned around and looked, and watched my drunken neighbors go back to the dumpster, pull my garbage out, and dig through it, looking for my correspondence. And a couple days later, they started arguing with me about something I'd written to somebody. And I'm like, okay, now these drunken jackasses are digging through my garbage. So I actually quit the condo association board shortly thereafter and said, I'm really sorry, but I can't deal with my drunken neighbors. And then shortly after, sold the unit and moved out. I would never live in a condominium again, ever. And I'd never deal with the homeowners association again, ever, because to me they're so closely linked, it's impossible. But those are simply experiences I dealt with. You might have different experiences. You are free to live your life as you see fit. I'm just letting you know where I got my prejudices from. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.